The prison ship, the Maw, floated in the darkness of space like a metal beast with no heart. It was the most feared prison in the galaxy. Only the worst criminals were sent there: warlords, assassins, traitors. The guards were brutal, and the rules were simple: survive or die. On one cold day, a new prisoner arrived. He was not tall or strong like the others. He had no claws, no armor, no scales. He was human. His body was covered in blood and bruises, and his eyes were cold. Too cold for someone who looked so broken. The other prisoners laughed. They called him weak. They called him soft. They had heard of humans, but most believed they were just wild animals from a distant death world, not real fighters. A gang of prisoners tried to test him. Big, strong aliens with weapons made from sharpened bone. They found the human alone, in the food hall, sitting quietly with his head down. They didn't even let him finish his meal before they attacked. 1 minute passed, then 2. When the guards finally arrived, they didn't find the human dead. Instead, they found him standing, in the middle of the room, holding one of the gang leader's weapons. Blood dripped from it. The others were on the floor, unmoving, groaning, broken. The human said nothing. He just went back to his food and kept eating. That day, the laughing stopped. Whispers began to spread across the prison. "He's not normal," some said. "He didn't even blink," others added. "He wanted that. Fight." No one knew his name. He had not spoken a single word since arriving, but everyone began calling him Ghost. He moved like one, quiet, deadly, and impossible to catch. The prison guards didn't like this new fear growing in the air. They tried to put the human in isolation, but the cameras showed something strange. He didn't sleep. He just sat in the dark staring at the walls, not moving, not blinking, just waiting. A few days later, another prisoner went missing. No one heard a fight. No alarm was triggered. But in the morning, his cell was empty, and there was a message scratched into the metal wall. "One down." Panic spread. The warden ordered full lockdown, but it didn't help. Every night someone else vanished. No one ever saw it happen. Just silence. Then nothing. The warden was furious. He brought in shock troops to beat the human. 20 armored guards entered the human's cell, but the cameras blacked out. When the feed returned, all 20 lay on the floor, groaning, broken, some crying in fear. The human stood among them, untouched, still silent. The warden couldn't understand. How could one human do this? How did he fight with no fear, no pain, no mercy? The guards were trained killers, and he defeated them like shadows in his path. Something darker was going on. A scientist who studied Deathworld species tried to give an answer. "Humans are different," she said. "They don't fight to win, they fight to end threats. They don't back down, they adapt, and the ones like him, the quiet ones, those are the most dangerous." But the warden didn't listen. He believed fear could be controlled. He was wrong. One night, alarms screamed across the prison. Fire, explosions. Dozens of cells opened. Chaos spread like a virus. And in the middle of it, cameras caught a glimpse of the human walking through smoke, calm, focused, unstoppable. He didn't run. He didn't hide. He walked straight into the heart of the prison. And behind him, bodies, not dead, not yet, but broken in ways that made even the strongest aliens tremble. The prisoners, once the galaxy's worst, now stayed in their cells when they heard his footsteps. They prayed he wouldn't stop at their door. Even the guards began quitting. Some begged for transfers. Others locked themselves in the control rooms and watched from the monitors, afraid to step outside. And through it all, the human never spoke a word. What did he want? Why was he there? No one knew, but one thing was clear now. He wasn't trying to escape. He was here for something else, and nothing, no warden, no weapon, no alien beast, could stop him. In the Maw, fear had a new face, and it was human. Warden Karth was a proud alien. His skin was hard like metal, his eyes sharp like blades, and his voice could shake the walls. He had ruled the Maw for over 20 cycles. No prisoner had ever escaped. No uprising had lasted more than a day. He believed in power, control, and fear. But now, fear had turned against him. The human was ruining everything. Prisoners stopped fighting each other. They stopped obeying the guards. Every shadow looked dangerous, every sound made them jump. The human had not spoken, not made demands, not asked for anything. And still, he ruled the prison now, not Karth. The warden watched the recordings again and again. The human defeated 20 elite guards. He vanished from camera view like a ghost. Bodies were left behind, broken, but alive. That was strange. Why didn't he kill them? I will break him, Warden Karth growled. He is just flesh. I am stone. The next day, Karth sent in the shock squad, 10 of the most violent prisoners in the maw. He offered them freedom if they brought back the human's head. These monsters had crushed bones with bare hands. They had destroyed ships, cities, even whole villages. Karth thought the human couldn't survive them. But when the squad didn't return after 2 hours, Karth checked the cameras. He saw something he didn't expect. The hallway where the squad had gone was now silent. On the walls, written in blood, was one word: try harder. The squad was alive, but barely. They were tied up with their own weapons, stripped of pride. None of them could speak. One of them had clawed at the walls until his fingers bled. Another had bitten off his own tongue. When medics arrived, all 10 just repeated the same whisper over and over. He smiled while he did it. Karth's pride began to crack. He ordered double guards. He locked down the human's cell. He turned off the power to make the air cold and the food scarce. Still, the human didn't complain. He didn't sleep. He didn't move. He just waited. The prison psychologist begged the warden to stop. This isn't just a man, she said. This is something created by war, by pain, by loss. He doesn't fear death. He doesn't fear pain. You're only making him stronger. Karth laughed in her face. The next night, a strange thing happened. The power went out across the entire East Wing. Backup systems failed. Guards rushed to fix it. When they returned, 3 more prisoners were gone. Not dead. Gone. No trace. Only the same message scratched into a steel beam. I remember everything. Karth finally began to panic. He called in the grinders, massive war machines controlled by AI. No emotion, no weakness, just pure killing power. He programmed them to patrol the human's area. That night something happened that shocked even the warden. The grinders didn't return. Instead, one of their heads was found placed on Karth's desk. How it got there, no one knew. But burned into the metal was the human's first real message. You built this cage for monsters. I'm the one you forgot to fear. Guards started quitting. Some begged to be locked in cells for their own safety. Even prisoners who once ruled the halls now sat quietly, hoping the human would pass them by. Karth tried one last thing. He went to the human cell himself. 10 guards stood behind him, weapons charged, shields up. The door opened slowly. Inside, the human sat in the dark. He didn't move. His eyes opened slowly, cold and empty. You think you're strong, Karth said, trying to hide the shake in his voice. But you're alone, you're trapped. What do you want? The human stood. He walked up to the warden, stopping just inches away. The guards tensed, fingers on triggers. Then the human finally spoke. His voice was low, calm, terrifying. I want you to remember this moment, Warden, because this is the last time you will feel safe. Karth stepped back, heart pounding. The human didn't attack. He just sat back down and smiled. From that day, Karth no longer felt in control. He couldn't sleep. He saw the human's face in his dreams. He heard footsteps in empty halls. His own guards began to watch him strangely. Some even whispered that they respected the human more. The strongest alien in the maw had made a mistake. He thought a human could be broken. He was wrong. Rumors filled the prison. Every corner of the maw whispered about the human. Some said he was a ghost. Others said he was a weapon created by Earth to punish aliens. No one knew the truth. But every day, fear grew stronger. And in the center of it all sat the quiet human, never speaking, never asking, just waiting. Then something strange happened. A small message was discovered in the system logs. A hidden file deep in the prison's database. One of the tech workers found it by accident. He brought it to Warden Karth at once. The file had no name, but inside was one line, recorded in a soft human voice. "You think I'm here to escape?" "No, I came to find you." The warden's hands trembled as he listened again and again. The human didn't stumble into the prison. He chose to be captured. He had planned it all. But why? Why would anyone walk into the deadliest prison in the galaxy? That question had no answer. But in the shadows, in the quiet cells, one old prisoner began to speak. His name was Gorvak. He was once a general in the war against Earth. He had fought humans before and lost badly. He told the others what he knew. "This one, he isn't here by mistake," Gorvak said. "He had a squad once, a tight unit. They were ambushed years ago by a special operations team made of the same species that built this prison. His team was captured, tortured, and killed. Except for him. He survived, and he never forgot." The others listened in silence. "He let himself get caught," Gorvak said, "so he could come here. Because this is where the killers were sent, the guards, the old war criminals. He came here, not to escape, but to hunt." The prison shook with fear. One by one, the people who had served in that ambush, the old soldiers, the scientists, the torturers, they began to disappear. Their cells were empty. Their names were scratched out on the walls. And always, the same message was left behind. "I remember your face." Warden Karth's panic turned to rage. He ordered that the human be moved to maximum security. But when the guards arrived to move him, his cell was already open. He was gone, not escaped, released. Someone inside the prison had opened the door. Someone had helped him. The human now had allies. Not many, just a few. But they believed in him. They had watched what he did, and they were tired of living in fear. They followed him now, not because he promised freedom, but because he brought justice, the kind no one else dared to give. One of the guards, a young alien named Tarek, began leaving food and information in secret places. Tarek had lost his brother in the same war. His family never got answers. When he saw the human's quiet rage, he saw truth in it. He knew the human wasn't just angry, he was right. Soon the human began targeting the control systems, not to break out, but to lock others in. Whole sections of the prison were sealed. Cameras went dark, power failed, and inside those dark rooms the guilty screamed. Then silence. The warden realized too late. He had never been in control. The human had played him like a game. Every attack, every missing prisoner, every moment of fear. It had all been part of a plan, not a prison break, a hunt. Warden Karth tried to warn the Galactic Council. He begged for help. He said the human was a weapon, a demon, a plague. But the council didn't believe him. They said it was just one man. "Handle it," they told him. And so, Karth was alone in his own prison, hunted by a man with nothing to lose. One night Karth found a message burned into the door of his office. "I'm not here to run. I'm here to finish what you started." That night, he locked his door 3 times. But even then, he kept hearing footsteps outside. Soft, slow, patient. And in the silence that followed, he finally understood the truth. The human never wanted to escape. He wanted them to feel what his team had felt. Fear, pain, and the slow creeping end they couldn't stop. The galaxy had thought it locked away a broken man. But they had built the perfect cage. for him to feed. The maw was no longer a prison. It had become a battlefield, and the enemy was already inside. The humans' actions had changed everything. The guards no longer walked with pride. They moved in groups, hands shaking on their weapons. The prisoners, once loud and violent, stayed, silent in their cells. Even the walls seemed colder, heavier, like they were waiting for something dark to happen. And it was happening. Piece by piece, the human was tearing the prison apart, not with bombs or guns, but with fear, with silence, and with purpose. The guards tried to fix the damage. They sealed off broken wings and restarted security systems, but it was too late. The systems had been infected by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Cameras looped false footage. Doors opened and closed without orders. Emergency codes stopped working. The human had taken control from the inside. Warden Karth was losing his grip. He shouted at his officers, blamed his staff, even attacked a fellow warden during a secure call. But deep down he knew the truth. The prison he built was falling, and one human was doing it. Meanwhile, something strange began to happen among the prisoners. A few of them started following the human. Not in words, he still barely spoke, but in actions. When he moved, they followed. When he left messages scratched into the walls, they watched. Some called him the Ghost. Others whispered the Reaper. But all of them agreed on one thing: he was not there to save anyone. He was there to finish something. A prisoner named Darrow, once a pirate lord, stood beside him now. "I've killed thousands," Darrow said, "but I've never seen eyes like yours. You don't want revenge, you want truth." The human said nothing. But in that silence, Darrow understood. More allies joined. A hacker, a smuggler, a former soldier. Not heroes, just broken people who had seen what the galaxy really was. And now they had a leader who didn't lie, didn't beg, didn't run. He walked into hells and kept walking. But Warden Karth wasn't finished. He still had one card left. The deep cells. Buried far below the maw, these cells held the worst of the worst. Monsters, killers, beasts so dangerous that even the guards never went near them. Karth opened them all, released every nightmare he had caged for years. His plan was simple: let chaos destroy the human. But it backfired. The monsters did escape. They rampaged through the lower levels. Screams echoed through the halls. Blood covered the walls. But when the beasts reached the human, they stopped. One of them, a giant thing with 6 arms and razor skin, looked the human in the eyes. Then it backed away, slowly, carefully, as if it had just seen something worse than itself. The others followed. They didn't attack. They ran. Even monsters knew fear. And somehow, they feared him. Warden Karth was watching everything from his command room. He slammed his fists on the table, screamed orders, broke screens with his bare hands, but no one listened. The guards had abandoned their posts. Some escaped in pods. Others locked themselves in supply rooms. And then the power failed. Completely. The entire maw went dark. Emergency lights flickered weakly. The sound of air systems slowed. The hum of machines died. And in that silence, the doors began to open, all of them. Every cell, every hallway, every gate. And standing in the center of it all was the human. He turned slowly, watching as the prisoners stepped out. Not wild, not crazy, calm, focused. They didn't cheer. They didn't fight. They waited. Then the human raised his hand. Just once, and the hunt continued. Not for escape, not for freedom, but for justice. He moved through the halls like a ghost, guiding the others. They didn't destroy everything. They targeted specific rooms, certain guards, old war criminals hiding behind fake names. One by one, they were pulled from their offices, their beds, their hiding places. None of them died. Not yet. They were locked in the very cells they once ruled. And above them, on the walls, the message returned: "You don't get to die easy." Outside, the prison, the Galactic Council finally began to worry. They lost contact with the maw. Ships sent to check in never returned. Whispers spread across the stars. What's happening in there? Who is this human? Why can't we stop him? But it was too late. The cage had cracked, and the man inside was no longer a prisoner. He was the storm coming for them all. Warden Karth locked himself in the command center, alone, sweating, breathing heavy. The power was out across most of the prison, but he had saved emergency backup for this room. It was the last safe place, his last stronghold. Outside, everything was falling apart. The human had done the impossible. He had taken control of the most secure prison in the galaxy using fear, silence, and precision. Not with an army, not with guns, just with purpose and pain. Karth had watched it all through the last working security feeds. Prisoners were now running operations. Guards were hiding or captured. The worst killers in the maw now followed the human without question. The whole prison was upside down. But Karth had one final plan. In the center of the command room sat a black box, a last resort. It was locked under biometric code, his code only. Inside it was the Omega Protocol, a kill switch that would destroy the entire prison from the inside. A full self-destruct. Every hallway would collapse. Every gate would seal. No one would survive. Not even the human. Karth stared at the box. His finger hovered over the pad. Was he really ready to kill thousands? Just to stop one man? He gritted, his teeth. He's not a man, he whispered to himself. He's a disease, and I'll be the cure. Suddenly, the screen in front of him flickered. A face appeared, not a video, not a live call. It was the human. Just sitting in the dark, looking directly into the camera. Calm, cold, like he had been waiting for this moment. Then he spoke. You never understood, he said. This place isn't your prison anymore. It's your trial. Karth stepped back. How did he break through the lockdown? The human continued. You built this cage to hold monsters, but you never asked, what if someone worse walked in willingly? Karth shouted at the screen. You think you've won? You think I'll let you take this place? The human leaned forward. His voice dropped. I don't want your prison. I want your name, your face, your record. I want every secret you buried under this place. I want the galaxy to see what you really are. And just like that, the screen went black. Karth's heart pounded. He turned to the Omega box. He placed his hand on the pad, but nothing happened. Access denied. He tried again. Access denied. Again. Access denied. The screen came back. This time, it showed the security logs, his own logs. Every illegal command, every tortured prisoner, every bribe, every secret kill order. Someone had downloaded it all. The human hadn't just taken over the prison, he had taken the truth. Karth screamed, No, that's impossible. You can't, but it was too late. A deep alarm began to sound. Not the prison's alarm. A message broadcast. Across the galaxy. The human's voice echoed through every screen, every comm tower, every council hall. This is what your peace is. Built on. This is the truth you hide in the dark. I was just one man. Imagine what happens when more come. Then video files began to play. Across space, across systems. Images of tortured prisoners, secret experiments, corrupt officials. And Karth's face in everyone. His crimes were no longer hidden. He was exposed. Inside the prison, the human and his small team stood at the center control room. The doors were open, the lights were back on. But no one moved to escape. Because escape was never the goal, justice was. One of the prisoners whispered, He did it. He burned the whole lie down. Another replied, No, he showed it. Meanwhile, Karth was trying to run. He had a private escape pod, hidden behind the wall. He climbed into it, breathing fast, shaking. The pod launched into space. But a message was waiting for him on the inside screen. Just one sentence: "You don't get to run." Then the pod turned. He hadn't noticed it before, but the nav system was hijacked. It was heading straight back to Earth, straight to trial, straight to judgment. As the stars spun outside his window, Warden Karth finally broke. Back inside the maw, the human stood alone for a moment. No one spoke, no one moved. They just waited for him to say something, but he didn't. He turned and walked back into the shadows. He had done what he came to do. He didn't want power. He didn't want praise. He just wanted them to feel what his team felt. Alone. Betrayed. Forgotten. But not anymore. The galaxy now remembered, and it would never forget the name of the man they once tried to cage. The human with no mercy. The Galactic Council was in panic. Their screens were filled with terrible truths, videos, files, voices of the dead. Every major news wave, every broadcast station, every communication channel played the same message. The Maw prison was no longer under their control. It had been exposed. And worse, it had been taken over by a single human. Some council members called it a terrorist act. Others called it a rebellion. But deep down, they all knew what it really was. A message. A warning. A ghost from Earth had reached into the dark corners of their power and ripped the mask off. Now the galaxy knew what they were hiding, and they were afraid. "We must destroy the Maw," shouted High Chancellor Velor. "Wipe it from space." But others hesitated. There are still prisoners inside, and guards. Some of them surrendered. Velor didn't care. "Collateral damage," he said coldly. "That human has declared war. We answer." Within hours, the Council sent a fleet. Not just any fleet. Purge Fleet 7. Ships built for one thing: erasing places from history. 20 destroyers. 5 dreadnoughts. And 1 planetary-class cannon ship. Their target: the Maw. But the human was ready. Inside the prison, he stood in the control tower, his face calm, his eyes cold. Around him stood the small team he had gathered, former prisoners, warriors, outcasts. They had prepared the defenses. They had fixed the weapons buried in the walls. They had cracked the old codes. Now they would make a final stand, but not to survive. To prove a point. The first wave of enemy fire hit the outer shell. Explosions lit up space. The Maw shook, but it held. Its structure, built to hold monsters, was stronger than most space stations. The human didn't blink. He gave short orders, just a few words. "Shields to Sector 9. Fire pulse cannons. Jam comms." No panic, no fear. He had already faced death. Now he was giving it back. The prisoners-turned-soldiers followed his lead. They weren't trained like soldiers, but they didn't need to be. They fought with something stronger: rage, purpose, truth. They weren't fighting to escape. They were fighting to make the galaxy look in the mirror, and they were winning, at least for now. The human used the prison's ancient systems like, weapons, gravity traps, magnetic pulses, decoy signals. He confused the fleet, made them fire at their own ships, and slowly, the tide shifted. 2 council ships were destroyed. 3 were disabled. The council commanders began to panic. "This is not possible. It's just a prison." But it wasn't, not anymore. The human had turned it into something else, a symbol, a hammer, a ghost that would haunt them. But then, the council revealed their final move. From the edge of the system came a shape, a black ship larger than anything seen before. Long, silent, and made for only one purpose: the Eraser. A ship not used in over 100 years, built to destroy planets. Built to end rebellions in one strike. Now it was aimed at the Maw. The human looked at the screen as the massive ship charged its core weapon. The red light grew brighter. The countdown began. 10 minutes until firing. Everyone around him looked to him for orders, but the human was silent. Finally, he spoke. "Evacuate them." "What?" Darrow, the ex-pirate, stepped forward. You said we stand and fight. We did, the human said, and the galaxy heard us. That's enough. He pointed to the escape routes. Tunnels dug, pods stolen, corridors cleared. Get them out. All of them. What about you? The hacker asked. I stay, he replied. No, someone whispered. You don't have to die, said another. But he shook his head. I'm not dying, I'm finishing. The prisoners hesitated, but slowly they obeyed. They trusted him now. Some cried, others saluted. A few tried to stay, but he ordered them out, and in the last minutes he stood alone at the top of the tower, watching the weapon charge, watching the stars. And he smiled, because he knew, even if they erased this place, they couldn't erase the truth anymore. His message had already reached every corner of the galaxy. They feared him. Not because of his strength, not because of his weapons, but because he couldn't be bought, couldn't be broken, and most of all, because he had no mercy for monsters hiding behind laws. And now, the Council would learn. Even if they destroyed him, 1,000 more would rise. The countdown reached 0. The stars flashed red, and then, white light swallowed everything. The blast was seen from across the system. The eraser fired its planet-killer beam straight at the maw. In a flash of white light, the ancient prison vanished. No sound, no survivors, just a cloud of dust and fire where once stood the most feared prison in the galaxy. The Council celebrated in silence. No cheers, no smiles, only cold relief. He's gone, Chancellor Velor whispered. The human, finally gone. They thought it was over. They thought they had erased the story. But they were wrong. Across the galaxy, the people had seen everything. The files, the videos, the truth, and the human's final message. He gave his life to show us, a young alien student said on her school network. He showed us the rot hiding in power. Not a terrorist, said a former soldier on a space news feed. A mirror. The story spread like wildfire. Whole worlds began to question the Council. Riots started. Protests grew. Investigations opened. A storm had been born, and at the center of it, a man with no mercy. But not everyone believed he died. Some said he escaped at the last second, hidden in a shielded pod. Others swore they saw a ship, black and silent, leave the maw before the beam hit. A few claimed to meet him in distant spaceports, never for long, never confirmed. Just a shadow, a warning. He's still out there, a smuggler whispered. Watching, waiting. The Council tried to crush the rumors, but the more they denied it, the more people believed it. Because the human had become something more than a man. He had become a legend. In dark alleys, prisoners passed on his name like a prayer. In noble courts, leaders whispered it like a curse. The man who could not be broken, who turned the galaxy's greatest prison into a weapon, who made truth louder than warships, the man they feared, the man with no mercy. Years passed. Systems changed. The Council grew weaker. Its power cracked from the inside. Investigations uncovered years of crimes. Some chancellors resigned. Others were arrested. The galaxy had shifted, and far from the politics and noise, in a quiet corner of space, a small ship landed on a lonely moon. A figure stepped out. Tall, scarred, silent. He walked to a grave marked only by a metal plate. No name, just a symbol, a broken chain. He knelt. I kept my promise, he said softly. Behind him, another figure appeared. A young alien girl, tough eyes, sharp mind. One of the orphans saved from the maw. They still talk about you, she said. Even now. The man stood. They shouldn't, he replied. I'm not the story. The truth is, she handed him a data pad. Another prison. Another place just like the maw. He nodded slowly. Then we go. The ship lifted into the sky. Not for war, but for justice. Because even if the council built 1,000 prisons, even if they created 1,000 lies, they would never stop the fire that had started. They had feared a human with no mercy. Now they feared something worse. A human with a mission, and the galaxy would never be the same again.